Hi, it's Scott Vogel on sex addiction. I'm going to share with you what it's like to battle a sex addiction. Fighting sex addiction for almost every struggling sex addict is a really difficult battle. And there's a lot of reasons. You see, sex addiction is a disease, and at this time there is no known cure. So you or the addict has to battle this with as many resources as possible until hopefully the day comes when there is a cure for this disease. So you can expect to feel cravings when you decide to get into recovery and battle the sex addiction. These cravings are for the sexually addictive behaviors that you've been acting out on, the unwanted behaviors that you've decided to stop. Even if you have willpower of steel, you'll still struggle with the thoughts of indulging in these habits or behaviors that used to fuel your sexual addiction. Willpower alone will not work, no matter how many times you try, no matter how many people tell you, well, just use willpower or you can do it. You know that willpower doesn't work. Those thoughts will return. It's normal and it's not something to be ashamed of. Much like any addict will crave their drug of choice. An alcoholic will crave a drink, a drug addict will crave drugs, food, gambling, etc. A sex addict's going to crave the sexually addictive behaviors. It's the most powerful chemical released in the body is the results of having sex. So you might find it an uphill struggle at times to overcome this addiction when these cravings occur. So, what can you do to make it easier? What are the strategies, things to do? So what you need to do is stop the cravings in their track. That's the key here, is to get out of that thought process, out of that cycle. So there's different ways to do it. I mean, thought shifting is one of them. When that thought comes into your mind, to have a preset list of thoughts, of behaviors. It could be something as simple as when you have the thought to, the rubber band on a wrist, or to gently slap your wrist, or put your hand over your heart and say, where can I put this energy? I found that out from George Collins at the SASH conference. Very useful. Putting your hand over your heart and saying, where can I put this energy instead? Prayer. For some, prayer is very helpful to shift the thought to praying and asking for help. Meditation. Some people meditate. Maybe it's meditation during yoga, meditation during a walk, working out of some kind. But it's getting away from what you're doing at the moment to break the thought process, to shift the thought from the desire to act out sexually to something else. It could be sitting down and journaling and writing down, okay, here's my thoughts, here's what it's coming from, here's what it wants me to do, and keep writing until it's out of your head. You can get in the car and take a ride if that's not a trigger for you. And a really good thing is to call somebody from the fellowship, from one of the 12-step fellowships of SAA, SLA, SA, and talk to somebody and see how they might be able to help you get through that difficult time, because it doesn't last forever. It will go away. One of the things you'll find in recovering and battling a sex addiction is you'll find out who your true friends are. You'll start to find out what a true relationship is all about. Coming out and saying that you're suffering from sex addiction might alienate some people as fair-weathered friends, they're called. This process can really be hurtful because we want to think that people are always going to be there for us, but unfortunately some people won't when they find out that you're battling a sex addiction, because they just don't understand it. Most people just don't understand it, but it can happen for various reasons. Perhaps the idea of sex addiction makes them uncomfortable, or maybe they have a similar struggle in the past and they don't know how to approach it or deal with it. Maybe they've been abused. Maybe they know somebody that's been abused and they just don't want to deal with you. Well, my attitude is that's their problem, not mine. So whatever the reason is, the good news is that many of your friends will stick by you and they'll offer their support. These friends will become an invaluable network of support. I have a group of friends that know everything about my past and my history in recovery from sex addiction, and they're there for me. I can count on them to support me when I'm struggling with challenges in life, stress, pressure, fear, anxiety. They're there. That's part of the addiction, not necessarily the sexual acting out part. Let's take a look at your family. Your family may have mixed reactions when you tell them you've been struggling with sex addiction, but they're most likely to lend their support. Now, some will be more supportive than others. Some might call you to check in and maybe even take you to meetings and support you there. But at the end of the day, family members will see you through your struggle. And that's really good news if you're a family-oriented person. It's vital that you have this type of support, and your family will become a valuable tool in your struggle and battle against sex addiction. Let's talk about the inevitable, and I'm sad to say the inevitable, and we're going to talk about slips. Is it failing? Remember, sex addiction recovery is about progress, not perfection. You'll hear that in the rooms. It's not about being perfect. We can't be perfect, and we can't set ourselves up to fail. You may slip up, or in AA as they call falling off the wagon. It happens to a lot of people. It does affect your recovery, but what you need to do is realize that you probably, if you have a slip or a relapse, you want to do what's called a relapse autopsy and journal about it. Write about it. What happened? Why did you do it? And how can you maybe see it coming in the future? And what strategies can you use that we talked about earlier to prevent it from happening again? Remember, when you get into recovery, it's a journey. And if you do slip or relapse, realize that it's part of the process, that it's not perfection. And since there's not a cure yet for this disease, you have to battle this addiction with all the tools and resources that you can muster. And so by doing a relapse autopsy and journaling and talking about it, what your feelings were at the time, and saying, okay, what can I do differently next time? Over time, when a similar situation happens, you'll be better equipped to deal with it. And just get right back on track. Get right back into your program, right back into your meetings, your meditation, your prayer, your journaling, your phone calls, working the steps. That's the only way to continue to battle this sex addiction. So a lot of people want to know, how long is this battle going to take? I wish there was good news. I wish I could say that it's a very short battle, but there is no quick fix at this point. In 2012, heading to 2013, there is no quick fix for the disease of sex addiction. For most, it's going to take months and probably years. Many of the professionals say it's 3 to 5 years to deal with the emotional baggage and the trauma that caused the sex addiction. Once you stop acting out sexually, there's all the other debris that has to be dealt with on why you chose to act out sexually, on your emotions and feelings and fears and challenges and struggles. And you'll have to be strong enough during that process to not give in to your cravings while you're working the steps, while you're working with a therapist, while you're going to groups, going to meetings. Now, you're not going to have to struggle every single day as intensely. It gets easier and easier as time goes on. But it's not going to go away. It's, believe it or not, it's a blessing and a curse. The curse is to be a sex addict. The blessing is you get to recover your life. Some days will be harder than others. Some days will be a piece of cake. But remember, your battle with sex addiction hinges largely on your determination. Not your willpower, but your determination to create a network of other recovering addicts, a support system, support groups, meetings, phone calls, and a willingness to work hard for your own recovery. So we talked about the cravings will come, that the need to develop the strategies to interrupt, to shift the thought from what you're feeling and what you want to do to something that is healthier for you. Creating a strong group of friends that understand what you're going through. The support of your family. Slips, unfortunately, are going to happen, and in early recovery they sometimes happen. You need to be prepared for them and deal with them as part of the process. Hopefully you won't have a slip. Hopefully you'll get into recovery, you'll be abstinent, and you'll be sober. And how long? It's different for every single person. But it's a battle to overcome the disease of sex addiction. Please visit our YouTube channel on sex addiction for more videos on sex addiction and recovery from sex addiction. Also, visit our blog at www.onsexaddiction.com for a free video explaining what sex addiction is, the 7 symptoms of sex addiction, the 4 traumas of sex addiction, the 4 faulty core beliefs set up by those traumas of addiction, and the solution to recovery from sex addiction, the 7 paths to success in recovery from sex addiction. You'll also find more information about sex addiction and sex addiction recovery. This is Scott Vogel on Sex Addiction.